all these coaches, when they come to South Africa, they come, a coach at the club level, and the first time they go to a township, and when they see the talent, raw talent, and most of them, they always say, kids here are talented, more talented than kids I've seen in Brazil, than kids I've seen in South America, in Europe. So what does that tell us? It tells us we had talent, we have. So where's the problem? Administration. If you look at most of our biggest inputs, most of them, when they got to Europe, that's where their careers excelled.
Yeah.
You look at Benny McCarthy, you look at Lucas Radebe, you look at Quentin Fortune, I can name, some of the players that went to Europe as kids, like Delron Buckley. These are kids that went to Europe at 12, 13. And so for me, then tells us that talent is there. We have more than enough talent to compete globally with anyone.
And do
pound
well,
for
yeah.
pound. Problem is administration.
Welcome back, guys, to the Fix Africa podcast. Here we discuss solutions that we can fix Africa, and we talk to leaders in Africa, understand their journeys, and also craft solutions for the generations that are to come. And today we've got a legend in the sporting field, a man who we all know and we've celebrated as South Africans, Mr. Brian Spider Baloyi. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Where did the name Spider come from? I mean, I thought that was quite Spider-Man. I thought it was quite interesting. Where did it come from?
It came from supporters. Actually, Saddam Make is one of the people that were behind the nickname. And I remember, when they first started calling me with that, I didn't like it. and clearly because I didn't really understand why. But when I asked him, and then he said, no, basically spiders, they create their webs in the corners. So he said, I save balls in the top corners with ease. So that's how it came from. I said, geez, okay. Then over time, I started falling in love with it. But the biggest thing for me is that growing up in a township or in the rural areas, every kid, when they start playing football, they call themselves with someone. You give yourself a nickname, or when you're good, then your peers will give you a nickname of it's either a Messi or, And so growing up, we all had our nicknames. But then one then started looking at it now. When you're older, you look at it and you start seeing it like, geez, I'm a pioneer. Because there was no Spider before. Before me, there was no, so I came up, so it means I was that good that, I was able to people come up with a special nickname for me. And in South African football, nicknames are very, very important.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, you've represented the country on the biggest stages in the world when it comes to football. How does it feel like, representing South Africa at the peak and doing so well? What was the feeling like?
Geez, you get goosebumps. You get to understand what it means to represent your country. As a young boy, you used to watch, Brazil, England, and you'd see these players when they're playing World Cups and everything, when they standing there and putting their hand on their heart, and you always knew this is something that is done by either and growing up here, we see it being done by either soldiers or it's done by presidents, So when you started getting into sport, knowing you're going to do that as well, then you know that, you're presenting your country with pride. And it's the best thing ever. I think for me is that I got to do something that I love, and I traveled the world only because of sports. And I think later we'll get into it, the importance of sports and why I believe as a country we need to take sports seriously.
I like that. We'll definitely get to that. Looking at to today's sporting, there's these chats about the fact that sportsmen are under so much pressure. Everybody's watching their lifestyle, and people are sort of saying that back in the day the pressure was not there, but these days it's like the spotlight. And I often wonder to say, is it warranted? Is there pressure that you are seeing that is different from the pressures that you guys had in those days?
Mostly, I don't like to compare different generations, but in our time, there's always pressure in sports, in top professional sports. But yes, today, sometimes I feel for these young people when I see how social media has just transformed how we share news, and definitely they are under more pressure and under more scrutiny. In the last 3-4 months, I've been, getting across some of the greatest players that we've seen globally that are now retired, and they're talking about depression. They're talking about how, who thought Thierry Henry would talk about he had anxiety when he played. When you watch Thierry Henry, you just see someone who's just playing there, enjoying himself, someone with confidence and a little bit of arrogance to a large extent when he's playing. Today, he's sharing his stories. He's telling people that he had anxiety. I'm seeing a lot of the former footballers in the UK, that are sharing stories about anxiety and depression. And when I see such, I always try and bring it home. And I start thinking about these poor kids that are playing in the PSL. And knowing that there's little to none intervention and help from the clubs, I feel for them. And and it pushes me to want to do something. To get to a point where we are able to address these issues, of which, there's a study that was done about 3-4 years ago. In the UK, they say 66% of professional footballers in the UK, they suffer through depression and anxiety. So again, when I bring it home, if in the UK
it's happening,
like that, then what about, the players here, and is it addressed? And again, when you start looking at what we've gone through globally in South Africa in the last 3 years with COVID, with all of that, when you understand, just when you see people that are sharing their stories with anxiety and depression and all of these because of that, then you start thinking about these young people, sports people, and then you get to understand that there's a lot that's going on that these kids that are going through that is not being addressed.
That's profound. I mean, it makes me think that there's definitely something that needs to be looked in there to say the mental well-being of sports people. That's important. I mean, you're a hero, and I mean, one of the things that I was looking forward to sitting down with you is that our communities lack heroes. There seems to be a big mismatch between young people looking up to the right people and actually aspiring to do the right thing. Let's talk about the importance of communities having heroes, what that means. I mean, you've been a hero to many different communities. I mean, Alex, where you come from as well. That importance, can we talk about that?
Yeah, it's hugely important for me. I think growing up, I had people that I looked up to that were heroes, including the late Nelson Mandela. Including, for me, just in Alex. Alex is one township that has always produced excellence in sports, arts and culture. If I had to count people that come from Alex from the 60s all the way to today, in the arts and culture, in sports, in business and politics. So the community of Alex always does have heroes, but are we putting the spotlight on them? Are we showing that and making sure that these kids know that there's these heroes that come from where they come from that are just like them? No. If you look at Soweto and Alex, if you had to compare, if you look at the heritage and the history that comes from Alex, it's much, much bigger than Soweto.
But yet
But
we
Soweto
see,
is a a global
phenomenon. Everybody knows about it.
If you look at, most people don't know that Tata Mandela is always talking about Soweto. When he came here, he lived in Alex.
I didn't know that.
He lived in Alex.
Sure.
His house in Alex has been kept as a heritage site. But there's not much spotlight on it. Because before he went to Soweto, that's where he lived.
That's where he started.
On the same street that he lived, Samora Machel lived just about a few meters from there. In the same street. Samora Machel, Huma Sikela, Kaifas Semenya, same street. The same street, Jomo Sono, and Ivan Koza. So and I don't, and if I go into business, great business people that come from Alex. Right now there's an old man called Setati, Tata Setati, who runs this big logistic company. $1 billion business. Come from Alex. There's a lot. Sports. Football. Growing up, myself as a goalkeeper, there was Isaac Chira that played for Kaizer Chiefs before me and lived in the same street as me. Shagan Mobo. There's a lot of the football heroes that came from Alex. You go into, the arts, the guys I mentioned. If I mention the ones right now, in the piano movement,
you're right,
come from
Alex,
most of the soapies that are on TV right now, there's anywhere between 5 and 10 kids that come from Alex. But we don't share much about. I came across a documentary just a few months ago, I think late last year, where Sipho Sticks Mabuse was talking about, I think it was himself and Silo Makeka Ngube, I don't remember who's the third one, that they made a pact in the 70s that they're not going to leave the township, that when they make it, they'll stay in the township because they want to show the black child that you can succeed and stay. But I'm angry with them. I'm angry with them that they didn't share. They had this pact and they kept it by themselves. So imagine if they shared this with the masses. They shared this with us. Because black child, growing up in a township or a rural community, first thing you think of when you think of success, you want to get out of here.
We've had that narrative so much.
You want to get out. That's the first thing that you want. And so the townships, they create the heroes and they leave. And once they left, they never go back.
The only time you go back is when you go to the Kawas, to the Chisanyama, for them to see. We don't go back and plow into the community. We don't go back and try and help to solve the challenges that are in the community. Because most of them, as much as there's newer challenges now, but growing up there were challenges. So you grow up, you get out of that environment, you know you've left challenges there. And so I think maybe the next generation is that we need to teach our people not to depend on the state, that because everything that's wrong in our community is, what is the government doing? But what are we doing? This is the same things that Uba Muzi was also saying, to say that we as citizens need to hold each other accountable to what we're doing. Looking at, and I think let's jump into it, sports. You've had a beautiful career in sports, and for me it's always been a pain point to say what sports should be in South Africa is not where it should be. It should be much further. To be honest, I think that the sports that is doing the way that it should do is rugby, because it's got the funders that are there. But in many of the sporting codes, and we live in a country where unemployment is one of the biggest things, and sports does solve unemployment. It's been proven over and over again. What are your thoughts? Or maybe let's put it this way, to say, in another world, if you were Minister of Sports, and we had to hear from somebody who's been in the inside, What are some of the changes and things that you think we would need to do there?
So I think sports, arts and culture is the same, and the challenges are the same. And when I speak to my brothers and sisters that are, in music and acting, we always find that our challenges are the same. And for me, so I'll put it like this. If you look at, I played professional for over 20 years. And in my 20 years, I had plus minus, give or take, 10 top coaches, from Europe, from South America. And all these coaches, when they come to South Africa, they come, the coach at the club level, and the first time they go to a township, and when they see the talent, raw talent, and most of them, they always say, kids here are talented, more talented than kids I've seen in Brazil, than kids I've seen in South America, in Europe. So what does that tell us? It tells us we have talent, we have. So where's the problem? Administration. If you look at most of our biggest inputs, most of them, when they got to Europe, that's where their career excelled.
Yeah.
You look at Benny McCarthy, you look at Lucas Radebe, you look at Quentin Fortune, I can name, some of the players that went to Europe as kids, like Delron Buckley. These are kids that went to Europe at 12, 13. And so for me, then tells us that talent is there. We have more than enough talent to compete globally with anyone
and do well. Yeah.
Problem is administration.
What does that administration look like? Because I think a lot of people, they always jump to the fact that, no, but we've got a league, there's this league, there's that league, and they sort of forget the structure of where the sporting actually starts. So let's break it down. I mean, what does it look like?
So let's break it down. So if you look at, for Bafana to thrive, the league has to thrive. Just yesterday, Banyana was playing. And they were playing the most important game. They were playing with Nigeria. It was the last game for them. If they win, they qualify for the Olympics. Stadium Loftus was half empty. Number one. So again, for it's about, again, where so you in South Africa now, you have to toy around with where do you take the games. I know football lovers will maybe ostracize me for saying this. We keep saying we are a football loving nation, but I don't think we are. I don't think we do understand what a football loving nation is. If you go, and more especially, I always say to people, to football supporters, and I always say to them, today I'm no different from you. I'm a supporter. Before I was a professional footballer, I was just a young boy loving football just like anybody else. Now I'm a supporter as well now. But for me, I'm saying to them, when you go to Egypt, people will tell you that those people are mad about football. When you go to even here, just Tanzania, Yanga FC. But the biggest problem with South Africa is that so we look at the PSL in totality as the league. And when we look at it and when we're saying the league is the most successful league in Africa, we're looking at what they're able to draw as sponsorships. But is it really the most successful league in the world, in Africa? If you look at, and for me, I say to people, you look at the quality of foreign players that we are able to attract here. Back in the day, most foreign players, they knew that coming to South Africa was a stepping stone to go to Europe. They don't come here anymore. We get in the crumbs from. If you had to look at, and then over and above that again, if you look at the clubs right now, You look at Chiefs, Pirates. Chiefs, I think on average, maybe Pirates even have their home games. I think they're averaging more supporters than Chiefs at Orlando. Chiefs having to play. You look at them a week after having a full FNB with 90,000. The next week they play on a Wednesday. You go to Soccer City, there's less than 5,000 people. And again, there's a lot of things that really contribute
to that happening. Yeah.
To that happening. First is the structure of ownership that is very that no one wants to talk about.
Wow, that's. I mean, yeah, I've never thought of that.
Structure of ownership that no one wants to touch.
How is it different in other countries? Because over here, obviously, it's very similar to the taxi business.
Yeah.
Overseas and in other areas, how is it different?
And it was always like that, yeah. So the pioneer was Kaiser Matahong. Before Kaiser Chiefs, there was no club in South Africa that was named after a person. Clubs were always named after a city, after a,
Yeah.
So they were always communal.
Yeah.
Then Kaiser Chiefs came. And it was good for football at the time. Is it good for football today? No. I'll tell you why. So everyone else today is trying to be a Kaiser. Everyone else wants to follow a model they don't understand.
It's about the ego more than it is ego, about the business.
So if you go to the townships now, I always say this, clubs that I played for when I was 10, 11, 12, 13 in Alex, they don't exist anymore. Most clubs now is that you go to the township, who owns clubs now in the township? Someone with a bit of back, someone who has tenders here and there. Everyone wants to be called chairman. Everyone wants to be called, president or chairman.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. You look in the PSL right now, there's Team Sukazi Galaxy. They're following Kaiser. There's Chipa United. There's Andile Mpisani.
Chairman.
So for me, again, I'm saying, really, and I have nothing against the young man and the family and what they're trying to do. But for me, I'm saying, if we really take football that's serious, is it the right model to follow to have,
I mean, the more you speak about it, the more I'm looking at Man U. I'm like, they have shareholders. There's a structure.
Again, then people start asking why people are not going to the stadium.
Yeah.
Football is about community. Football is about. It's not about the one person. So now with everyone now following the Kaiser Chiefs model.
And I mean, if we're being honest, I mean, the more you speak about it, I'm thinking even the children and the grandchildren come. It becomes a family stock fair.
Then you go to the next one where with clubs here. So imagine Liverpool deciding that no, we're playing our two home games. We're going to play them in Manchester. That would never happen. It's happening here in South Africa, where Kaiser Chiefs are taking some of their home games to Cape Town, taking some to Limpopo. Sundowns does the same thing. Paris does the same thing. You look at Team Sukazi, Team Galaxy. So for me, like I say, for me, football is about community. So TS Galaxy, they say they are from. They are proudly in Ndebele, from what's this town in what's this town, man? I'll remember it. Just
okay.
But where do they train? They train here in Joburg, and they play their matches in Bombela.
The community is non-existent. They're not,
Sikukuni United. Sikukuni United means they're from Sikukuni. Where do they train? Here in Joburg. Where do they play their matches? In Polokwane. And until we address these things, football is not going to grow. Football is not, we're going to keep asking ourselves, no, and then we come to a point where we say, no, maybe people, you look at, I was laughing the other day when there was a cup final, just now in December. And the cup final was Stellenbosch and TS Galaxy. And now people had to beg, phone in on radio, the final is in Durban. People had to beg and ask people, no, people must go and fill up the stadium. I'm saying no. If you look at, in England, FA Cup, if Manchester goes into a final with a team from the first division, of which it happens, or from the second division, Wembley Stadium is going to be full. They're going to have a problem of that people are now wanting to buy tickets, including that they're buying the tickets on the black market.
Yeah, it's now overflow issues now to say.
Whereas with us, now we have to beg people, they must go fill up the stadium. I'm saying no. Each club must fill up their own stadium. So why do you have to now say, and then you go on and say, there's so many things that are happening that are unique to South African football, where we need to look at them and ask ourselves, yes, they are unique to South African football, but are they good for this sport? For instance, when Chiefs is playing Sundowns, then you see Pirates supporters at the stadium, like, and then they say, no, those people, now I'm saying, no, they don't love football. Because the argument with people, I mean, when I see Bota, there's a supporter called Bota from the number one supporter of Celtics. He goes literally to all the matches.
I've also been seeing that.
And then the argument is he loves football. I'm like, no. He loves the attention.
And probably the money.
The money and all. But I believe our supporters today, I mean, if you watch our games mostly, I know for a fact that there's supporters that go to the stadium, that talk to production, where production gives them, go sit there and they write stuff on the boards. It's no more, I mean, today we don't have brands in football. And you'd struggle to give me 5 top players today, that would stand toe to toe with. I was saying the other day to a friend of mine, I'm saying, it's criminal that footballers today in South Africa, they can't stand toe to toe with influencers on social media to get endorsements.
Whereas the biggest influencer in the world is a footballer.
But when you come here, you find influencers that have more followers than footballers. And football is the biggest sport on the continent, globally. So there's a lot of things that we need to fix with football. But for them to be fixed, we really need to get to a point where we are honest with ourselves, not only as football, but as South Africa. That then only then we will start addressing these issues.
I think for me, the eye-opening, I mean, the first one where you talk about ownership, I get it so much because for years we even now know the team after the owner's name and associated there instead of knowing the team for anything else. And I think that's dangerous because we're allowing people to create stockpiles with a national sport that should be the pride of the nation and boosting our economy and doing so many things.
Yeah, today we know administrators and more than we know the players. You go to Spain, Italy,
We don't even know who
You
those
don't know. Yeah, you don't.
We just know that there's an office somewhere that, they're going to buy him, but we don't even know who.
Including here, there's a lot we can learn from rugby and cricket. Look at how rugby is structured. You look at, and again, I'm not saying we must copy rugby, but there's a lot of good things that we can learn from there. If you look at, the franchises, how they're structured. So there's a lot to learn from there. But again, the biggest one for me that needs us to open up a debate with people within the game, including government, is addressing the issue of development of football.
Yeah.
Because there, for me, then we need to address the issue. And I look at, because more often than not, and it happened when I was a young man, where playing at school had to compete with playing at
the club, whatever club you.
So now our development here, you find the schools sports. Now there's schools football, and then there's the clubs and the academies. So at some point you find that this child now plays for school, and then he plays for club. And sometimes now the training clashes. Sometimes even the matches clashes. So poor kids have to choose where
to go.
Whereas with rugby,
the whole class will be told that no, we are cancelling after class because there's a rugby match.
Yeah, but with rugby, if you look at rugby, I think there's less than 5 players that have played for the Boks that did not come from schools structures, from the development. I think if I stand to be corrected, I think Mapimpi is one of them. But you look at so the development of rugby is in schools, and SARU is involved in running and developing those programs. So it comes from schools all the way to varsity, and then including now going into playing for the franchises and playing for the Boks. There is club rugby, but club rugby, that's not where you get talent.
Yeah.
Club rugby is for people that are just playing just to have a dop. and for me, I believe that's the model we should follow.
Sure. So you're saying from the state, the schools, we must have in each province a school that we say, look, if you're a good soccer player, this school will look for you from primary, high school, and because that's the rugby model, as you're saying it is.
Yeah. But then we come to the importance of sports. So I'm where I am today because I'm a product of sports. A lot of the things about me, my character, and me being able to sit and speak and do all of these things is because of football. These are not things I learned in class. These are things I learned on the football pitch. So here's where, if you look at sports in our schools, and I mean in our townships, in our rural communities, in all our communities, sports is not compulsory. Kids choose if they want to play or not. Including that, even if in a school sports would be taken serious, if in a school of 1,000 kids, so only the 30 that will play for the team will play the sport. But and you look at your private schools, sports is compulsory. And this is what I always ask black folk. We all take our kids to private schools. We've never asked, why is sports compulsory? We just obey and we just take them and they just play. And we know, they'll tell you, your child has to choose a sport in this quarter.
In this, yeah.
The next one they'll have to choose. Even if they would say, no, I love rugby, they say, no. Now it's the season for cricket or hockey, and this, you must choose. So sports plays a very integral part in human development. So as human beings, we learn through experiences, we learn through doing, and theory. In class is theory. So white folk understands that the kids develop a lot of things on the sports field. Character, from character to resilience,
teamwork.
Yes. So this how simple it is. To put it simply, is that if we both now are applying for a job, if they look at your resume and then you've played sports and didn't, chances are you might get the job more than before me, because they understand that because corporate is team sports.
What a definition! I like that. Corporate is team sports. Sports.
When you're working for whatever corporate you work for, including working in government, is team sports.
Team sports, yeah.
It's not about you. So if you've played sports, then you understand that here's my position in the team, and yes, I want to win, but we need to win as a team. So all of these things come into play, but you can only learn these things through sports. So we need to our government need to really take sports very seriously. Sports needs to be compulsory, including arts. That's where kids learn, a whole lot of kids you get kids that are introverts and all of that. And for you to be able to for them, the character to come out, you'll find kids that are very good in acting, but when they come out of the drama, they go back to their shell. I was the same. I speak about this because I know from experience. I was very shy. I was a shy, 16-year-old, 17. So when I turned pro, very shy, and I had to learn then. Now, some of the things that I used to do, I started doing them, pushing myself to get out of my shell.
Yeah.
And then I understood that being on the field is no different than being on stage. When I go on the field, I understood that I'm out there to perform. So when I go out there, I'm acting. So I'll go into character when I'm on the field. That's why a lot of people always say, on the field I was, very aggressive, but then off the field then I would be chilled. But because I understood that going onto the field, now I go into character when I go into the field, and I'll go out character after the match.
Yeah, no, I think it's quite clear to say that we need to fix a lot in sports in South Africa that's going to be able to fix a whole lot of things. I want to just backtrack to some stuff that you said about soccer that I think is fundamental. The community element. I mean, what you're saying about the community hits home, because you're basically saying that, look, soccer teams are built by the communities that are in there. It's them coming to support. It's them. And those communities must feel like they're a part of it. If we look at it practically, how could we fix that? Because I'm looking at South Africa and I'm thinking some of these soccer teams have become family stocks fell so much. I don't know if they're even willing to include. Is it a board that we set up? How do we make sure that the community is, because I can see what you're saying, what you're saying is perfect in terms of fixing the issues, but how do we do that? How do we ensure that the community is connected to the soccer team and that they have a voice, because I'm sure the community is also saying, Kulumile, but whoever owns it said to us, no, who are you guys? Where's your shares or whatever?
So for me, I think it has to go back to now us as community to start understanding, to working together. That's where it starts. These models are out there. It's not like I'm talking about things that don't exist. The club I played for, so in my teens, in the early 90s, kids from Alex, then, the late Sheikh Skungani went on to play for Wanderers. And then there was a club called Mpho Park, and then Vets, Highlands Park. So kids from Alex, we all started going out to play for clubs in the suburbs. And it was fashionable, and because of the things that came, the perks that came with it, that you play in the suburbs, they're going to buy boots for you, they're going to give you a kit bag, they're going to give you, you're going to get fully kitted. So we all went to the suburbs. But all those clubs I'm mentioning, they still exist till today, because no one owns them. There's a club called Randbeck, still there. There's a club called Robert Shem Kelly's, still exists.
Sure.
There's a club, Balfour Park, Highlands Park, all these clubs, they still exist because these are clubs that are not owned by a person. They're owned by the community. The community is the parents of the kids that are playing in the club. And
I'm sure the old boys also come back.
Yes. And so models are there that we can just take to the townships. For me, most of the time when I go to whether Alex or any township, when I sit with people that own clubs, my question to them is, why are you competing? Sometimes I get friends that are coming from the same township. 3 of them, they all own clubs. Saying, why don't you guys come together, resources into one, and you all co-own the club?
The club, yeah. Because essentially, if all the clubs are strong, you everything becomes stronger.
Yes, because then, so now, if there's 20 of us in Alex, we all own clubs. We'll only compete with ourselves.
Yeah. And each one is weak because the strongest is 1-1-1.
But if 10 and 10 go on and have a club and a club, now there's 2 strong clubs in Alex that will be able to go out and compete with the others outside, where the club will be able to grow. Hopefully one day get into the semi-professional or professional. But you don't get that because everyone wants to be, the term we use in Kokasi is presa. Everyone wants to be called presa. Everyone wants to be called chairman. So I think the clubs of the future is the clubs that will be built on the principles and the ethos of oneness. And for me, I think the most important thing, here's the most important thing that a club needs to represent. And those are the clubs that we need to build for the future. And I think I'm talking about some of the stuff that I've been doing research and some things that I'm putting it out there in the universe. And there's things that, one of the things that I wanted to chat to you about the blockchain.
Okay.
So for me, a club has to have a soul. So the club has to, the club has to have a reason for existence. If the reason for existence for that football club is just football, then it's useless. We look at the challenges that we have in our communities. So today, we need to build clubs that are now going to address the challenges we have in society. So now, even without the team, the club exists. So now, people that even support the club, whether the club wins or loses, you know that this is bigger than just football. It's about the community.
I see where the blockchain is coming in.
And such clubs exist now in Europe. There's a club called in Germany, in the 2nd division. Actually, they're about to win the league now and go into the Bundesliga.
Wow.
Old club. I think the club was born in 1854. The club is called FC Pauli, and so this club is one of the pioneers in Germany. So in Germany, when the Berlin Wall came down, so clubs from East Germany and West Germany had to come together and play in one league. And they tell us that clubs coming from the East Germany, they were hugely racist. They used to sing racist chants at the matches. And in 1985, FC Pauli was the first club that stopped this thing. They said, not at our games. So they came together and they stopped racist chants being sung at their matches. And that propelled the club to go on and become, so the club is social conscious. So for me, I'm saying we need to build clubs that have a conscience and that have a social standing in society. So that's what the club is about. FC Pauli, some people, they call them the supporters, they call them the hippies.
Oh, I see, because the conscience is there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a club in Spain called Athletic Bilbao. The club is about just their community and their area where they come from. That club doesn't have foreign players. So so the club itself. So for you to play for Atletico Bilbao, it's either so there's an area, it's called Basque area. So in the Basque area, let's say Gauteng. So the club is from Gauteng. So now they're saying for you to play for the club, it's either you have to be born in Gauteng or you have to be developed in Gauteng. You can come from Venda, maybe when you're 10, and then you join a development here. Then you have, there's evidence that you were developed in Gauteng. Then you can play for the club, including the foreigners they have there. It's players that they come from South America when he was like 6, 7. He lives there and then he was developed. So even when you go onto their website, you can see the timeline of all the players they've had, and that he came from here, and so the club in Gauteng then would invest in different communities. Would go to Tembisa, so
all their matches will be full. Everybody knows about it. In
all these areas, the club would have satellites, so that now there's players that are being developed that would eventually come and feed into.
Sure.
People are saying no, with globalization and all these things. No, it doesn't. It's working. Atletico Bilbao is there. And
communities.
They are competitive, and for them, it's not about what Madrid and Barcelona is about. For them, it's about the pride about Basque. So those are we need to start building clubs
like that,
on those principles. Like I said, for me, I think South Africa, not only talent today. You go to different townships. You go to different rural communities. You'll find tournaments that are being done by either a businessman or a former footballer in that area. At the tournament, people would come out and support. But after the tournament, every weekend when you go and watch the kids that play every weekend that are just playing in the leagues, no one goes to watch them. So the same idea of now doing a tournament and you have all these people that you can put together, then come up with the idea of now these people can come together, then they can come together and support one club. Let's create a club in that community. But it's about, I think it's about, again, us having to think out the box.
Yeah.
And it's about, I get this a lot where fans, when they see us, they keep asking us, why is football, with Chiefs almost every day? I get this. And I end up having
I'll erase that question. I would ask it.
I end up having to say to people, hey, but I'm a Baloyi, I'm not a Mpho. Please, the Baloyi clan has its own problems. I have to go fix the Baloyi clan's problems. Let the Mutahungs fix their own problems. But again, I love the club. And, myself and a whole lot of other legends, we love the club and we'd love to see the club, doing much better than it is right now. But...
yeah, I think you've dropped some very important things that I think if implemented could really revolutionize our sporting field. Let's talk about life after the field. A lot of people have started to ask questions to say, is sports sustainable in terms of after that? How do our heroes live after that? What are you busy with? What have you found? So let's take it from your peak to say you're at your peak, you're retiring now. Yeah. What happened? What?
Jeez, you're taking me back, and I try to share as much as possible, and let me just shoot. So as a young man, I think when I moved to Sundowns, I was 29 and about 10:30. And at that time, I remember when I moved, at that time I said, I want to retire at 36. And at that time, I didn't really have a reason why. I just chose the number. And but again, one of the biggest reasons I moved to Sundowns as well was that I saw this businessman that's coming into football, and he was so approachable, and I wanted to learn from him. So one of the reasons I moved, I told him, was I want to learn from you, but one of my dreams is when I stop football, I don't want to go into coaching. I want to go into administration. And I said to him, I remember 2 months after I had signed at Sundowns, after looking at Sundowns, I said to him, when I retire here, I want to be the CEO. And he said, okay, no, I'll support you. And so fast forward, when I had to retire, so before that, so then we got the World Cup 2010. Then I decided, just I'm gonna retire after the World Cup. But for me, then I had something that was pushing me. The World Cup coming to South Africa gave me something new, really, to aspire to and to push myself. And I pushed myself to the limit, to a point where, I mean, I remember the doctors at Sundowns, the doctor there then and the physios, they had been with the club from when I joined. I remember 2009, he said to me, I mean, you're the fittest you've ever been in your life. You are fitter.
Wow.
I was pushing myself. I was doing a whole lot of stuff. I used to do boxing. I was doing Bikram yoga.
Was that the one with the steam room?
With the steam room. Because I love reading. So I read Ryan Giggs's book, and I wanted to know how he was able to have a long career. And I found out from him that one of the things he was doing, he used to do yoga, he used to meditate, you know. And so so I started following all of those things, and I made the squad 2009 for the Confed Cup, and then I was in camp for 2010 squad. There was 4 of us. They had to cut one. Unfortunately, I was the one that was cut, so I didn't make it. But straight after the World Cup, I looked at myself. I said, you know what? I've achieved everything I think I can achieve in football. Do I still have, the drive? I decided no. And I thought, okay, end of this season, I'm turning 37. By the end of the season, I'll be 37. I said, 37, 20 is a good number. I turned professional at 17. I thought 20.
20 is a very good number, yeah.
Then I decided, let me hang up my boots. It was a struggle because the club didn't want me to retire. But eventually, they agreed, because I still had a year left in my contract to play. But eventually the club agreed, and I worked for a year as a commercial and marketing director. So funny that a lot of things that people don't know, I learned about marketing whilst playing. I used to watch the ladies that used to work for Chiefs, the Castellettis that did sponsorship and marketing for Chiefs, and so I learned a lot from them. And so here's 2 things I used to do. Whenever there's a dinner for sponsors, or we're launching a new sponsor, so this is what would happen. You'll have the launch. The players would come. Obviously, the players would be invited. Straight after the speeches and eating, the players are going to disappear. I used to stay. I would stay until 1 p.m. And I would have conversations with marketing directors, with CEOs. I would stay all the time. I would stay. And that's how I started being able to later then get personal endorsements that I used to get, because I started understanding that I had to carry myself in a certain way. I have to protect myself in a certain way for me to get sponsors. And so when I moved to Sundowns, I stayed at Sundowns for 7 years. In 7 years, I brokered for 4 or 5 sponsorships whilst playing.
Sure. So you had 2 jobs.
I directly brokered.
Sure.
About 5 of them whilst still a player.
And these were sponsorships for the
club.
Big sponsorships.
Yeah. I mean, when I got
What
to
was the
Sundowns,
biggest?
when I got to Sundowns, Sundowns was sponsored by Diadora. 2 years later, the sponsorship finished. Our personal sponsor was Nike. I facilitated the sponsorship.
Brilliant.
Before that, I had done Sahara, Sahara Computers.
Yeah.
Guptas. My first sponsorship that I facilitated for Sundowns was Sahara. Then from then on, then Nike, and then a couple of years later, then Sundowns was looking for a car sponsor. At the time, Sundowns had never had a car sponsor. Chiefs had car sponsor, Nissan and Pirates. And I had a personal sponsor at the time. I was driving a Jeep. And the boss said, can you do something? I said, yeah. Spoke to Chrysler Jeep, facilitated the meetings, went on with management. The deal was done.
Wow.
First car sponsor Sundowns had was Chrysler. I facilitated it. 3 years later, when it finished, I got Honda.
So you while you were playing, you were also a businessman and you had a plan for after.
So 3 years later, I got Honda. I did the bus sponsor they have till today with Autopex. I did the deal. So all of these I did them while I was playing.
You're playing, yeah.
I used to sit on management meetings whilst I was still a player. And but it's things that I've never shared. But I mean, I used to sit at management meetings whilst I still playing. To a point, I sat at a few board meetings as well. But I think for me, I appreciate that about the boss, Mr. Mtsepe, for facilitating that for me and for creating that environment for me, because he knew what I wanted to do, and he made sure that he creates that environment. And but sadly, after some time, I felt that I needed to be on my own. I needed same reason that I left Chiefs. When I felt that when I was at Chiefs, one of the biggest reasons as well was that I felt that I was at a point where I was too comfortable, and I had learned from the ones that have come before me at Chiefs. And one of the examples I always say to people, I say, one of the things that really, when I had to make the decision about leaving Chiefs, I looked at legends that had come before me. Like Ben Siklodi, that was, my legend. I looked at Teenage Ladla, and I looked at how, at the time, that he was not involved with the club, and so then for me, I had to think, and I discussed with my family, my mom and my wife, and I said, if I look at this guy, when I look at Teenage, for me, he's a legend, he's a god, and I could never put myself in the same category as him. But if he gets this type of treatment, who am I to think they'll treat me better
when I
stop? So I had to look after myself than the club, and that's one of the reasons that made me to make my move. When I had to leave Sundowns, I had to look at the environment, and I had to ask myself that I wanted growth, and I felt that the path that I had gone in that year, where I was commercial and marketing director, there was zero growth. And whereas before I held that position, I did so much. I did 5 sponsorships.
Yeah.
But then I come in, and so there was no growth. I felt I needed to move because I believe that I can offer much better, and I need to go out there and learn more about not just the game, about life. And again, this is another thing as well. And people sometimes ask me, "No, why are you guys not coaching?" And I say, South Africa has too many problems. Our problems as a country are bigger than just football. So if you look at me as in that I can only solve football problems, then I take that as an offense, because I'm involved in solving societal problems. My foundation, I do work in communities, in not only in Alex, even in rural communities. And the problems that we have in society, in our communities, like I said, are larger than just football. So I think one of the things that I don't like being put in a box.
In a box, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yes, but in doing that, I think for me, in going out into just the world outside football, I've learned so much, and it has taught me, and I've got to learn that then we can use football to solve the societal problems. Yes, so I don't want to. So this is what I said to my friends. I've got a whole lot of friends with money that want to buy clubs, of that they've bought clubs before, and they say, "No, can you come get involved?" I say, "No, I don't want to." And first thing I always ask them is, "What is the reason for existence?" And they don't have when you don't have an answer for just that one, before I start asking you a lot of more questions, because for me is the club has to have a reason for existence. And when the club has that, then I believe it has a soul. Then I can be involved. The model we're talking about, I think my advice to people in Bloemfontein, Celtics.
They need this advice.
Again, they keep looking for someone to rescue them. Right now, they're looking at who's going to buy the club, and then the club to be in the PSL again. But deja vu, they've been there before, where someone has owned the club and they sold it. Someone has owned the club, they sold it. But they still want to subject themselves to the same abuse. So I'm saying, them as fans, they need to come together. These models are there. So in Germany, so there's a model in Germany. In Germany, they call it 50+1. So clubs in Germany are owned by corporates and community. So if you look at Bayern Munich, so T-Systems, so the sponsor of the club would own 50+1. So the other then would be owned by supporters groupings, including business people that would own a share here. But the reason for that is that then now the corporate, you look at Bayer Leverkusen. Bayer Leverkusen is from Leverkusen, and that's where the pharmaceutical company Bayer comes from.
Yeah.
And the company, they say the company employs about close to over 100,000 people that come from that community, and the community say is about just 350 to 400,000 members of the city. So then the club, the company, is spending their CSA money on the community is working for them, but they know. So the model, I know it's working in Germany, and I can tell you there's a lot of resistance from other big clubs, big countries in Europe about this model. But the model, so clubs in Germany today, all the clubs, from the club that's number 1 in the league to the club that's number 18, the whole season, the tickets, it's 97% capacity, the stadiums. All home matches, 97%, if not 100.
If not 100, yeah.
All the clubs. So the model is working.
It's working, yeah.
If you see Dortmund, if you see all these clubs, if you see how, Celtic, I'm just giving them something to think about.
That's a tip there.
So for me, when it came to having to retire, after I left Sundowns, I went on and worked at SuperSport. And then 2 years later, I didn't like it. The entrepreneurial bug, bit. I've always been in business, even when I was playing. I mean, I've owned restaurants. I owned a Capello's Newtown. I owned it with Port Mabena around 2007, 2008. I was still, active. Soon after that, I owned a fish and chips with Ezrom Nyandoro at Sundowns. On the business side, I have a consultancy where we look at industries that we can go to, be it as an investor or be it as an advisor. I for the last 5 years I've been with a betting company, Hollywood Bets, where I'm brand ambassador. Do a lot of work with them. Do a lot of CSI work with the Brian Baloyi Family Foundation. We've built about 3 libraries in the last 6 years.
Wow.
With shipping containers, donated them in the rural communities.
Wow.
We're busy with a project now that hopefully by the end of the year we will roll out a learning center, IT learning center that we want to build in Alex and then take it out into rural communities. On the business side, I'm still busy with I think the restaurant and the food business always is always close to my heart. I recently came across a gentleman, and how we bumped into each other and started talking, and he just came to me. I was sitting with one of my former colleagues. I used to play with the Chiefs. We're sitting at Denfane Square, and this guy was just passing. Saw us sitting there at the restaurant. Just came to greet. And that became just greeting, ended up standing up, 2 hours later, we're still chatting, and ended up changing numbers. We find out we share a birthday. Now we're business partners. We in the next 2 months, we're rolling out a franchise business. Nice. That's from a local, that's from Kasi. Growing up, my late brother, so I come from a family of 4. I'm the third. My eldest brother, his soul rest in peace, he passed on in 1996. And in Alex, he was, if not the first guy. When I try to remember, and when other people, when we talk about it, we try to see if before he did it, if there was anyone else. But anyway, there were other people that were doing it. But it was one of the most popular quarter sports in Alex. People used to drive from, Marlborough, Sandton, just to come for lunch and to buy from my brother's establishment. And so when I spoke to this guy, I was just toying around with, I'm telling him, so he tells me, so this guy manufactures sauces for some of the biggest.
Oh, food, okay.
Yeah, food, for some of the biggest franchises, like your Nando's, So then we, so after from that chat, then we start talking about Kasi, we start talking about Kota. And then he takes out his phone, he shows me what I'm telling him, he says, no, I'm working on this. He says, no, man, let's meet, So from wanting to do the same thing, we ended up collaborating. And it's gonna come out soon. On the football side as well, I run a football business. We partner with Baloyi Properties. So we run soccer programs for kids at Baloyi Properties establishment in the most of the complexes estates they have this 5-a-side pitches. So we run kids programs on those. So
you really are an entrepreneur at heart because of all the many activities. I mean, we wouldn't do the interview justice without giving some advice to the young soccer players that look up to you and that are aspiring to make it. So I think, in closing, what would you say to a young soccer player who's looking for advice? And I think also what is the legacy that you would, I mean, you've already built an amazing legacy already, but we never stop, you keep going. What's that legacy that you want to be remembered for?
So here's one thing that keeps me going and that wakes me up every day, saying, if people were to remember me because of football, I would regard myself as a failure. I want people to remember me for the impact that I'll make in society, in changing society. And so my advice as well to young people that today that are playing football is one advice that Shoes Mshweo used to give us, and he used to say, you must learn to take the good with the bad. And he used to say this, and I know most of the other boys around him, we never understood and asked him why. He says, look, and he says, I've seen how people that are famous, that they want everything that comes with the fame. That's good. But the bad side, they don't want. And bad, not a bad as in bad in that way. I mean, typical example, you're saying, most of the footballers, and we would see them, you would be at the airport or wherever, and supporters would, swamp you and stuff. And you'd see some of them, they're not taking kindly to it, and as well, and so you'd say, as much as they're inconveniencing you, you chose this life, so you have to take everything that comes with it. Don't want to take so the fame says it brings whatever for me, whether it's endorsement, business, all of this. So take the other side as well. And this is what I always say to young people. I say, when you go, doesn't matter where, but when this young boy or an old lady comes up to you to greet you, all it takes, if you had to take a stopwatch and to count how much time it took for them to just greet you and you engage with them and they go, most times it's a minute or two.
Or even less, yeah.
Or even less. So just and the most important one as well is that you don't know how much impact that is going to have on that person. Because this person, till today, I mean, sometimes I laugh. I'm like, I don't understand. I thought by today people would know, because I mean, with TV, with technology and all. I mean, till today, I mean, 2 weeks ago, I was in Worcester, Cape Town. A friend of mine had an event there, and I was a keynote speaker, and had this people that were saying to me, and these are well-off business people, saying, geez, we used to see you just on TV. I didn't know that you are real. And these are things that people you would say back in the day when you went, when you go into the rural communities and stuff. But for me, to the young boy, I always tell them that there's two things that people that are in entertainment don't understand. When you don't understand the difference between who you are and what you do, then you have a big problem. Because more often than not, we get caught in what we do, and that shapes our character. We become what we do. So as a person, you always have to strive for to know the difference, that this is who I am and this is just what I do. Because what you do, it's gonna end at some point anyway. So if you retire at 35 and you're gonna live until you're 70, so when you've been caught up in what you do, so at 35 you don't do what you used to do. So what are you gonna do? What are you gonna be? So that's where now you find all of these things with depression, with anxiety, with all of these things that kick in, because now you have to face the real world. A couple of years back, I bumped into an interview of David James. David James is a Liverpool legend, and he played pro for 24 years. He retired at 43. He turned pro at like 19. And when he was about to retire, he wrote an article for one of the big newspapers in the UK. And in that article, one of the things that always stayed at the back of my mind, and that always made me want to help change the environment and the industry of football, is some of the things he said. He said, I turned pro at 18, and all my life, all I've known is that my life has been controlled. I wake up, I go to training. I wake up, I go to training. Straight after training, I come back home. I sit home. I play video games. I'm just sitting. And then later on, in my 20s, I got married. I have kids. Now my life is, I wake up, I take kids to school. I come back, I go to training, I come back, I fetch them, I come back. So this has been my life. So now, and he said he wanted to retire at like 40, but now he's 43. He's going to retire 44. He says, one of the things that have been pushing my retirement is that I've been anxious because I'm going into a world I don't know. I'm going into a world that God has never prepared me for. Because now, all of a sudden, when I retire, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. If I'm not coaching, so now that's where you are now face to face with the real world, and that's why then most of them now, they get anxiety, they get depression. You are used to this life where everyone is hero worshiping you. Now you retire, they have the next best thing. So now you are not
that thing.
So that's where now people get depression. That's where they get, all of these things. So I think if there's one thing that the game needs to do is to prepare footballers for life after football. And you need to prepare them once they sign, the day they sign their contract. And it happens in rugby. In rugby, they have an association. It's called My Players. The rugby players. It's called My Players. In that association, if you see the things they do there, they do all of these things where when a young boy signs a professional contract, they go and sit with him. They prepare him mentally. They prepare him and they financially, all of these things. And and in football, you don't have that.
You
don't have that.
A lot to fix.
A lot to fix.
No, but I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I think you've given us some great food for thought and some very good ideas that if people were listening, they could really implement. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for the inspiration that you are to young people coming up with the great work that you're doing.
Thank you very much. I had so much fun. Thank you.